After 8 seasons, Game of Thrones has finally come to an end in an episode called The Iron Throne. Here are 22 things you might have missed in the series finale. And warning, spoilers are coming. For the show's very last credit sequence, they changed yet again. This time there was no lion above the Iron Throne, showing that the Lannisters' reign has ended. And while the Red Keep is still shown as standing, other parts of King's Landing have been destroyed. We see a crack in the floor in the credits that we see later in the episode as Tyrion walks through the rubble. Daenerys stands in the ruins of King's Landing overlooking her massive army. The image almost directly mirrors this shot from Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, as Saruman overlooks his army before commanding them to march to Helm's Deep. Like Daenerys, Saruman also descended into madness. In that speech, she specifically speaks to the Dothraki saying, "You kept all your promises to me. You killed my enemies in their iron suits. You tore down their stone houses. You gave me the 7 kingdoms." She's referring to the original promise Khal Drogo gave Dany's unborn son in Season 1. Dany recalls this speech in Season 6 when she names all the Dothraki her blood riders. In Tyrion's cell, Jon repeats the words of Aemon Targaryen, the Maester of the Night's Watch.
Love is the death of duty.
Aemon offered this piece of wisdom when Jon was considering deserting the Night's Watch in order to come to Robb's aid.
Sooner or later, in every man's life, there comes a day when it is not easy. A day when he must choose.
In retrospect, his words sound pretty prophetic. Dany's premonition in the Season 2 finale, Valar Morghulis, finally came to fruition. In it, she walks through a ruined throne room that's blanketed in snow. In Episode 6, however, she actually touched the throne. In the vision, she did not. The Lord of the Rings comparisons were plenty. Moments after Jon murders Daenerys, Drogon flies in and in mourning burns the Iron Throne to a crisp. This is yet another instance mirroring Lord of the Rings. As pointed out by Joanna Robinson of Vanity Fair, the Iron Throne is similar to the One Ring, an object of absolute power that is absolutely corrupting. In this instance, Daenerys was like Gollum, looking wide-eyed when she finally obtains what she's been searching for all her life. And then, like the One Ring, the throne is destroyed by fire, melting in front of our eyes, taking Daenerys along with it. As the Starks stand at the King's Landing docks and prepare to go their separate ways, Grey Worm also departs. He's heading towards Noth, which is where Missandei is from, right before the Battle of Winterfell and a few episodes before Missandei's tragic death. Grey Worm tells Missandei that after the war ends, that he would like to leave Westeros and asks her where she would want to go. She responds that she would like to go see Noth again.
I'd like to see the beaches again.
Grey Worm kept his promise, but had to make the journey alone. The Starks go their separate ways, Jon to the north, Sansa back to Winterfell, and Arya somewhere out west to lands unknown to Westerosi. This was yet another Lord of the Rings parallel. The Return of the King ends with Frodo, Gandalf, and other characters sailing away to the Undying Lands. The 2 big farewells are visual and emotional mirrors of one another. And speaking of which, Arya's had the urge to explore what's west of Westeros since at least Season 6, when she had this conversation with the Braavosi actress Lady Crane.
Where will you go?
Essos is east, and Westeros is west. But what's west of Westeros?
I don't know.
Nobody does. It's where all the maps stop.
The edge of the world, maybe.
I'd like to see that.
The Great Council meets in the Dragon Pit to decide Tyrion's fate and who will rule Westeros. Among the people on the council, Samwell Tarly, Edmure Tully, Robin Arryn, Jon Royce, Sir Brienne of Tarth, Sir Davos Seaworth, Gendry Baratheon, Yara Greyjoy, an unnamed Prince of Dorne, and then Sansa, Arya, and Bran. There are also a few unidentified lords, one possibly from the Westerlands, and another might be from a lesser-known house in the Reach. Edmure Tully, Catelyn Stark's younger brother, has provided some of the most memorable moments of comic relief on the show, and this episode was no different. Most memorably, in Season 3, he tried to light his father's funeral pyre and couldn't hit it. Brienne is the new Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and she has a raven sigil on her armor representing Bran, the new king. We see Brienne writing in the White Book, a book with records of the deeds of all the members of the Kingsguard. Brienne read Jaime's page back in Season 4, Episode 4.
Thereafter known as the Kingslayer.
It's the duty of the Lord Commander to fill those pages. And there's still room left in mine.
Now that Brienne is Lord Commander, she fills Jaime's pages with the rest of his life and his death. We get to see exactly what Brienne writes in these pages about Jaime. We see her refer to the Loot Train battle from Season 7, Episode 4 as the Battle of Gold Road, which is a new name for that battle, and a better one. At the small council meeting, Sam presents Tyrion with a Song of Ice and Fire. It's a history of wars after King Robert, written by Archmaester Ebrose. Sam says he helped with the title. This is a callback to Season 7.
I'm not writing a chronicle of the wars following the death of King Robert I, so it can sit on a shelf unread. What? You don't like the title? What would you call it then?
Possibly something a bit more poetic?
When the new small council assembles, Bronn says, "Or soon there won't be no more coin." Sir Davos, who's master of ships, corrects him by saying, "any more." This is particularly funny because when we first met Davos, he couldn't read. He was taught by Shireen, Stannis Baratheon's daughter.
On the first night.
In Tyrion's final moment on the show, he says he brought a jackass and a honeycomb into a brothel. But here's the thing, we've all heard this joke before. Tyrion first attempted to tell it in his confession to Lysa Arryn in Season 1 before she cuts him off.
I once brought a jackass and a honeycomb into a brothel.
Silence! He then starts telling this same joke to Grey Worm and Missandei in Season 6, Episode 3, Oathbreaker, before he's interrupted once again.
I once walked into a brothel with a honeycomb and a jackass. The madam says...
Well, it looks like we'll never hear the punchline now. Tyrion's fussy chair rearranging is a habit left over from Tywin's small council meetings, which were memorable for passive-aggressive moves like this. Sansa's coronation dress represents the independence of the North. It has a pattern of a weirwood tree, which grows in the forests up north. The symbolism reminds us just how much she's evolved since longing for the South in Season 1. Sansa's crown also resembles one of Cersei's crowns, especially from the back. It suggests that Sansa took on the best of Cersei's queenly qualities. A lot of fans voiced their disappointment after Jon parted ways with Ghost in Episode 4 without so much as petting his wolf goodbye. That episode's director, David Nutter, explained that CGI considerations were the real reason behind Jon's abrupt send-off. Luckily, the visual effects team was able to pull together this last shot of Jon and Ghost's reunion. The final shot of the show is Jon Snow walking off beyond the wall with the wildlings through the woods. The show ends in the exact same place as it began. The pilot episode begins with a group of men from the Night's Watch going beyond the wall, where they encounter dead wildlings and then a White Walker. Now, they are free to walk beyond the wall with no whites or White Walkers in sight. In a mistake seen across the world, a coffee cup accidentally ended up in Season 8, Episode 4, The Last of the Starks. And unfortunately, it happened again. In the finale, during the council meeting, you can spot not one, but 2 water bottles that were left behind. One by Sam, and one by Davos. Did we miss anything? Let us know in the comments.